Hi, Evelyn. You are 1 day old. 1 day and 12 hours.
Hey everyone, it's Lindsay here, and I'm back with episode 8 of my Single Mom by Choice series. If you're new to this channel, I'm Lindsay. I'm a lesbian single mom by choice to my daughter Evelyn, who will be 5 in a couple months. And I've been doing this series on a variety of topics that are related to being a single mom by choice, or as I call myself, a solo mom. If you want to check out the other videos in this series, I'm going to put the links in the description to this video. Feel free to check them out. I plan on doing a 12-part series, so if there is a topic that you're interested in hearing about that I haven't yet covered, please let me know in the comments or send me a message. I'm an open book, and as a matter of fact, I'm doing this week's topic based on some feedback that I had from a couple people. I heard from a few people actually who are interested in hearing about my birth story with Evelyn. And I'm always more than happy to share my birth story with people because, as I like to say, it was the absolute best day of my life. I'm just going to share my own personal story and then maybe interject a couple things that people may want to consider if you are a single mom by choice who is either pregnant or thinking about getting pregnant. Some considerations to think about when you're putting together your birth plan or thinking about the kind of birth that you hope to have. So first I want to share something that you might not know about me unless you know me in person or you've read my blog that I wrote a couple years back. But giving birth to Evelyn was actually not my first time giving birth. I have been a surrogate mother twice in the past. I used my own eggs to get pregnant for other people, and I gave birth to 2 little girls, one in December of 2003, and then one in March of 2005. And so, yeah, my body had already been through it. Both of those labor and deliveries were in the hospital. They were both vaginal births, and they were both great. So when I discovered that I was pregnant with Evelyn, I knew that I had a decision to make. I knew that I needed to choose whether I wanted to work with an OB/GYN or a midwife. And that was a very easy decision for me. Midwifery care here in Canada is very good. It's very hands-on. They give you a lot of one-on-one attention. They spend a lot of time with you in each of your appointments. And because I knew that a home birth is something that I really wanted to consider, I knew that a midwife was my best option. So I chose midwifery care, and I absolutely am so glad I made that decision. I think that it was one of the best decisions I made in the whole process, was choosing midwifery care, because I did get a lot of individual attention, and I did end up getting my home birth that I so longed for. So throughout my pregnancy, I had a lot of conversations with my midwife and my students about what kind of birth I wanted to have. Did I want to give birth in a hospital? Did I want to give birth in a birthing center? Or did I want to give birth at home? Because my pregnancy was not high risk at all, it was a very textbook pregnancy, it was very easy as far as pregnancy goes. My midwife felt that as long as, nothing happened during the labor, that I would be able to safely have a home birth. And so that is what I chose. And the couple months prior to giving birth, that's when I started to accumulate all the stuff that you need for a home birth. I can't remember everything that was in the kit that I bought. I bought it online through some, home birth website, basically. I can't remember exactly what was in the kit. I just remember that I needed things like those blue pea pads to lay down on the bed, witch hazel, some arnica for pain. It's like some homeopathic thing that does absolutely nothing, and I didn't end up using it. Something for a solo mom to consider, and something that I see a lot of in the Facebook group that I'm in for single parents by choice, is who's going to be there in the room with me when I give birth. And for me, that was an easy decision. I wanted my mom there. I wanted my best friend there, and I wanted my midwife and her 2 students there. And so that is who was there. My stepdad was also there. So my parents had to come all the way from Pennsylvania. It's a 6-hour drive, but unfortunately, we were in the middle of the biggest snowstorm of the decade when I was in labor. So my parents had to drive through this snowstorm from Pennsylvania to Toronto, and I know that it took them a lot longer than 6 hours to get here. I know that it was like a white knuckling it the whole way. I know that it was nerve-wracking for them to make it safely, but they did. And they arrived, I think, an hour and a half to 2 hours before Evelyn was actually born. So they made it in time. So anyway, I wanted my best friend there, and my best friend at the time was actually pregnant with Henry, who is my daughter's best friend now. And so she was due only 4 weeks after me. So she was 36 weeks pregnant when I went into labor, and it was really taxing for her, physically especially. But she was there for me, and I don't think she would have had it any other way. And I'm actually really glad that I made the decision to have her there. I don't even think it was a decision. She was there for my other 2 births. If you can have somebody there who is close to you, I highly recommend that. Not just for your own comfort when you're there, and to be there and be your advocate and be your physical support person and your emotionally supportive person, but also just to take a walk down memory lane with. I know there are also a lot of single moms who may not have somebody who they feel comfortable asking to be in the birthing room with them when they're giving birth, and so a lot of them opt to have a doula. So it was the evening of February 6, 2013, and I was getting into bed. It was around 10 o'clock at night, and I felt the unmistakable gush of fluid rush between my legs, and I actually heard a little pop. And I knew what it was. I knew right away that my water had broken. And so my midwife, because at this point my baby had not fully descended down into my pelvis, her head was kind of floating for a while. But my midwife told me if my water broke, I was to call her immediately, because the last thing we wanted was for the baby's head to descend, because once the water broke, her head would go down. We didn't want her head to go down and have the cord be underneath it, because if her head was putting pressure on the cord, she could die. Essentially, she would suffocate. And so what I had to do was, as soon as my water broke, I had to elevate my bum. So I had my head on the pillow here and my butt up in the air. And I called my midwife from that position after I'd unlocked my back door. It was a sliding glass door that led right into my bedroom. So I called my midwife, and she said, "Okay, is your butt elevated?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Okay, stay like that. I'm going to get to you as soon as I can." Maybe 10, 15 minutes later, she and one of her students were there, and they instructed me to lie on my back, and they checked me, and they checked to make sure with the position of the baby, make sure she had fully descended, and made sure her cord wasn't there under her head. And thankfully it wasn't. So everything was okay. Everything was looking good for the home birth at this point. So the next morning, I get up, my best friend calls me and asks me, what's going on? Nothing. My contractions hadn't started. Well, then my midwife called me around, I want to say 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning, and she said, "Have your contractions started?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Okay, I want you to come in. We're going to check on you and check on the baby, make sure everything's okay." So I get there. Baby and I are fine. Her heart rate is fine. I'm fine. Her position is perfect for giving birth. And the midwife said, "Okay, well, if your labor doesn't start within 24 hours, or at this point, I think it was like 18 hours, if your labor doesn't start spontaneously, we're going to need to get you to the hospital and induce you so that your contractions start, because there's a concern of infection after your water breaks, and there's a chance that you could get an infection, or the baby could get sick from this infection if you wait too long once labor starts after your water breaks." At least that was their window of time that they felt safe about having a home birth and not hooking me up to antibiotics after my water had broken. And so she said, the options are you can just go home and wait and hope that you spontaneously start your contractions, or you can go home and take castor oil. Now, I had castor oil experience from my previous 2 births, and I hated it. Like, it makes you, at the risk of sharing too much, it makes you have like explosive diarrhea. And I just didn't want that. And in fact, even the smell of castor oil to this day makes me feel violently ill. Like I want to retch. And the consistency in your mouth is just chunky oil. Is just terrible no matter how you take it. But I knew that the last thing I wanted was to be induced, because I knew that the risks were, if I were induced with Pitocin or something similar, that my chances for a cesarean section went up much higher. I would have to give birth in a hospital, which was not what I had been hoping for, and I just didn't want that. So I went home and I took the castor oil, and I waited. I waited for the bathroom session to start, and it never did. But what did happen was that my contractions started, and they came on pretty quickly. The midwives arrive, labor's progressing nicely. Hours go by at this point. I think, I ate a little bit, because the beautiful thing about a home birth is that they don't restrict your food. Nighttime falls, and my pain is extremely intense. I'm in and out of the shower. I'm in and out of the bathtub. I'm on my bed. And at this point, I think I was 8 centimeters dilated, and labor had stalled. Now, my parents arrived at this point, okay? And the energy shifted in the room. And when the energy shifts in a laboring mother's room, sometimes that can stall labor. So it did stall it a little bit. It slowed things down a little bit. But then eventually the energy, you know, I got used to the addition of my parents' energy in the home, and I continued on with my labor. I was hanging on my midwives. I was hanging on my best friend. My mom was helping. Everybody was very much involved in this and trying to help me through the pain, because again, I'm at home. There's no pain medication. Anyway, I'm 8 centimeters dilated, and they keep checking me. I'm going on the birthing stool to try to push her down so that I contract a little bit more, and I'm just not dilating anymore. And that's when my midwife, the primary midwife, said to me, "Something's going on with you, Lindsay. There's something inside of you that's holding you back from progressing. And I need you to get real with yourself, and I need you to get real with me and tell me what's going on. Why are you holding back?" Because labor, giving birth, is just as much mental as it is physical. I started to cry. I figured out almost right away what it was that was keeping me from moving forward. I don't think I'm going to share that on this, just because it's really personal. But I'm gonna cry again. Anyway, once I acknowledged it and got it out there, you know, she helped me through that, and she kind of, midwives are amazing, you guys. They acknowledged it, I get it out in the open, and within minutes I was dilated to a 10. Once I had it out there and I cried my tears that I needed to cry, I was dilated to a 10. And at this point, one of the student midwives was down there to catch the baby. Her name is Rashmi. And I push. Evelyn's head comes out and she says, "Reach down there, feel your baby." And I felt that she had hair. And at this point I'm getting excited, like, you know, my baby's here, and people are starting to cry. Everyone in the room is starting to cry. And Rashmi says to me, she says, "Reach down on your next contraction. I want you to reach down and push and pull your baby up." And so she didn't catch my baby, I caught her. And so I pushed and I pulled her up onto my chest, and she was so warm and slippery, and she started to cry almost immediately. And I looked at her and I said, "You're finally here." I said, "I've been waiting so long for you, and I love you so much." And I just cradled her, and my midwives let me take my time with her. I did the delayed cord cutting, so we made sure that all of the blood from the placenta had flowed into her. So we waited until the cord was white when we cut it. Once she was up on my chest, we were all sobbing. My mom was crying, Sarah was crying, the midwives were crying, I was crying, Evelyn was crying. And instead of taking my baby away from me in those moments like they do in the hospital, they let me hold on to her. They let me nurse her right away, and that calmed her down immediately. And she was very alert. You know, babies, when they're first born, for that first hour, they're very alert. And so she was very alert, and after she'd nursed, I passed her on to Sarah, I passed her on to my mom, and she made eye contact with us, and it was really beautiful. And my midwives, they stayed and they cleaned everything up. They cleaned up all my laundry, they cleaned up all the blood, they cleaned the bathroom, which was, it looked like a murder scene. There was so much blood everywhere. They cleaned up everything, and then they also made me peanut butter toast with honey to kind of give me some sustenance. And because at this point I was starving. You know, if you've given birth before, you know that first meal after you've given birth is just, it's the tastiest food you've ever had. And the midwives told me that my delivery, my labor and delivery, was one of the most peaceful and serene that they had ever attended. And that made me feel good, because I really wanted that for me after my surrogacy experiences, and, you know, being in this sterile setting with hospital people and handing my babies over to other people. They weren't my babies, but they were, you know, I carried them for 9 months. My home birth, I was able to have it on my terms, in my home. This was my baby. And I just made me feel really good that they said that it was one of the most beautiful and serene births they had attended, because I wanted that experience for my baby. She was born into this room surrounded by divine feminine energy. It just made me feel good to hear them say that about my birth. And maybe they say that to every birthing mother. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. It's just a good memory for me. After that first night at home, the midwives came the next day and they checked on me and Evelyn. And they came every day, I think, for 3 days. And then after that, or maybe it was every other day. I think maybe it was every other day. They came for 3 home visits anyway. And then after that, we started visiting their office for 6 weeks postpartum. And after the 6 weeks, Evelyn was released to her doctor's care, and I was released from their care. If you do have the opportunity to work with a midwife, I highly recommend it. Maybe you don't get that chance if you have a high-risk pregnancy, but here in Canada, if you have a high-risk pregnancy, you can still have a midwife, but she has to work in tandem with an OB/GYN, and you won't get your home birth if that's something that you wanted, but you can still have midwifery care, which is, like I said, very hands-on, very involved. They are emotionally invested in you, as well as being your care provider, I guess. I feel fortunate that I was able to give birth vaginally each time. I definitely want to say that my birth with Evelyn was an absolute dream come true. From start to finish, it was perfect. And I know that I was very lucky. If something had happened either during my pregnancy or while I was giving birth that would have required me to be transported to the hospital, of course I would have done that. My midwives were always, super vigilant. And as a matter of fact, when my labor stalled, when I was, that 8 centimeters and things weren't moving forward, when Elizabeth, my midwife, said to me, what's going on, Lindsay? She said, if things don't progress within the next 20, 30 minutes, we have to go to the hospital. This baby cannot stay in here any longer, and if you're not progressing, we're going to have to go get you some help. Well, I heard that, and I was like, oh, hell no. I did not go through all this at home just to go to the hospital. So after we went through my emotional hiccup, I guess you want to call it, or whatever, my realization of why I was hanging on and not letting her come out. Once I got through that, she came out. She was born at 1:11 a.m., February 8th, 2013. Anyway, thank you all for watching. If there's an element to my birth story that I missed, please let me know. Ask me any questions in the comments. Send me a message. Like I said, I'm an open book, and I probably did miss some things just because it was hours and hours, and I'm still not very good at this off-the-cuff speaking stuff. But anyway, if you're new here and you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and help me grow it. Please help me grow my audience by sharing this video if you feel like somebody that you know might benefit from it. And please like it, because any like that I get on a video lets YouTube know that my videos are worth watching. And even if they're not, maybe you want to throw me a Christmas present and like this video anyway. Thank you all for watching, and like I said, if there's another topic that you want to hear about in my Single Mom by Choice series, please let me know, and I'll make sure to cover it in an upcoming video. Thanks all. Bye.